Tonight, Toronto shuts down some mass vaccination clinics.
The fact that we're cutting back on the clinics, the fixed clinics, doesn't mean we don't want people to be vaccinated.
Instead, the city prepares to bolster mobile teams as cases of COVID-19 surge across the province.
Wrote on the wall that we're going to carry the torch for you.
The NDP marks the 10th anniversary of the death of Jack Leighton by proposing to rename a Toronto riding after their former leader. We'll have reaction.
Become the first person with a disability to paddleboard from one country to another.
Crossing international waters to help youth with mental health issues. We'll have the inspiring details.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Marivel Tarouk. Ontario is reporting the highest COVID-19 case count since June 5th. 722 new cases were logged today and 2 additional deaths. According to the health minister, more than 500 of those infections were among people who are either not fully vaccinated or have an unknown vaccination status. The province says 178 patients are in hospital due to COVID-19, with 141 of them in intensive care. As cases surge, Toronto is shutting down some of its mass vaccination clinics. 4 of the city's 9 immunization centres ceased operations today. As Dale Manukduk reports, the city will pivot to a hyper-local approach to get its remaining population vaccinated.
This North York vaccine clinic is a ghost town. One clinic staffer saying only 100 people had come through by the afternoon. The reduction in people accessing the clinic is why the North York Memorial Community Centre is shutting down its operation, along with 3 others.
They gave people enough of an opportunity to get vaccinated, and I don't know, maybe some people still don't want to get vaccinated.
I guess it makes sense since they could use it for different facilities and stuff like that. And if less people are using them, they could use it in a more productive manner.
5 clinics will continue to operate, including the Metro Convention Centre and Scarborough Town Centre. The city says the 5 clinics will still have the capacity to administer nearly 13,000 doses per week.
The fact that we're cutting back on the clinics, the fixed clinics, doesn't mean we don't want people to be vaccinated. We will come to you.
The latest city data says more than 75% of eligible residents are fully vaccinated and 82% have had 1 dose. But there remain several under-vaccinated areas in the city's northwest, identified by the lightly shaded areas. Taylor Massey in the East End has the lowest percentage of residents over 12 who have begun inoculation, just 62%.
But we really have to realize that 98% of people who were hospitalized were unvaccinated. So these vaccines are keeping us out of hospital. They're preserving our healthcare capacity.
Mayor John Tory spent time at the Thorncliffe Park Clinic today, which was sparsely filled. He said the days where it used to look like this are largely over, which is why the city is taking a new approach.
It's just a better use of the resources we have, because it's harder now to get people to flock to clinics, because those who are not yet vaccinated are ones that maybe have some hesitation.
The city will make getting vaccines more accessible by going directly into apartment buildings or close by.
We have people who are going door to door who may be medical professionals, but they may also just be trusted community figures. People who the resident answering the door will recognize.
Toronto will release a new clinic schedule next week so people can make arrangements to get vaccinated. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
10 years ago today, former NDP leader Jack Leighton passed away. Messages of remembrance were shared at Nathan Phillips Square, including from Jagmeet Singh. The current NDP leader also proposed a new way to honor Leighton by renaming the Toronto riding he once held. CBC's Dahlia Ashry has more on the effort and the reaction.
To have a fond and a beautiful memory rather than one that's just filled with tears and grief, that means a lot.
Toronto City Councillor Mike Leighton, son of former NDP leader Jack Leighton, touched 10 years later to still see people honoring his father with chalked messages on the wall at Nathan Phillips Square.
It was years of getting lovely notes from people just on their memories of Jack and the difference that he made, or if they impacted, or if he impacted their lives. And that's, I think, what I'll remember most about that time.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh paying tribute as well.
I wrote on the wall that we're going to carry the torch for you.
Singh is proposing to rename the Toronto Danforth riding to Danforth Leighton in honor of the leader he looks up to.
It seems very fitting to push for a renaming of the riding that he represented in honor of everything that he's done.
The NDP under Leighton held the Toronto Danforth riding for 7 years, but Liberal Dennis Mills won the seat and held the area from 1988 to 2004, far longer than Leighton. In a statement to CBC, the Liberal MP for the area now, Julie DeBrusen, says the focus is on matters like fighting climate change, access to affordable childcare, and reconciliation. Conservative strategist Alex Creston.
Jagmeet Singh might be looking at maybe following in Jack Layton's footsteps here with the Liberals faltering in the first week of the campaign, trying to bring back some of that energy, that orange crush appeal of Jack Layton.
It's an extremely unusual move, according to one political science professor I spoke with, who says the Toronto Danforth area has swung from NDP to Liberal and says that ridings are usually named after geographic areas and not political leaders.
An attempt by Mr. Singh to sway voters in that riding, but also to bask in the aura of Mr. Leighton. He could be honored by naming a high school after him or an airport. It doesn't have to do with an election.
Some voters we spoke with don't support the effort to rename the riding.
This is where I've grown up, this is my home, and this is what I know it as. And I wouldn't want it to be changed.
It's going to cost money, which shouldn't have to be spent on something that's already working well.
Other voters felt differently.
I think it's all about the people, not the place, and that is a good person to remember and honor.
Mike Leighton called the idea a touching gesture and said he did not feel it was politicizing the anniversary of his father's death. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Justin Trudeau took the Liberal campaign to the Maritimes today, making his government's record on the pandemic his theme. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Today was all about shoring up support for the Liberal leader. All three ridings Justin Trudeau hit in Atlantic Canada are in Liberal hands. But in two of them, new candidates are running, and the Liberals did lose 6 seats in this region in 2019. No new announcements today. Trudeau brought along Public Procurement Minister Anita Anand, who's seeking re-election in Ontario, to focus on their record of pandemic management. Trudeau introduced her to crowds as the Minister of Vaccines. He slammed Conservative leader Erin O'Toole for opposing mandatory vaccinations for travelers and for proposing tax credits to cover daycare costs.
And Conservative leader Erin O'Toole announcing today a plan to tackle opioid addiction. He said if he forms government, it will create residential drug treatment beds and build 50 recovery community centres.
We need to treat mental health like any form of health. So today's announcement is about recognizing the opioid crisis for what it is, a public health emergency.
The plan also includes money for Indigenous addiction recovery programs. O'Toole told reporters recovery and compassion need to be the focus of such programs and the justice system.
Too lazy to go to the pool because it's too hot. So I just stay in the AC or a fan. If you don't have AC, get a fan and you'll be okay.
You just accept what it is. If it's too hot outside, then you wear less layers, but if it's too cold, then you put on layers. So.
Well, some key advice right there, especially over the next few days as a heat warning remains in effect for the GTA, with hot and humid temperatures expected to last through the week and no relief really expected until Friday of next week. And there's a look at Ottawa for you tonight, where a heat warning is also in effect until tomorrow. The high temperatures had the city operating 3 cooling centres throughout the weekend. And this is all news that Sophia has been talking about over the course of this weekend, and we're going to be talking for days to come, it sounds like.
Yeah, a couple weeks in, even into September, this looks to be the pattern. I was taking some notes there, and hey, a well-known hack, you actually take a fan, as that Jays fan was mentioning, and put a bowl of ice cubes in front of it. Makeshift air conditioner.
Nice.
If you need it, there you go. News you can use. Could you use what feels like 27 out there right now? Actually, it feels quite warmer. It feels like the mid-30s still. Will feel like 26, 27 into the overnight period, as you mentioned. Those heat warnings are still in place. I suspect they'll be around for the coming days. It is warm, it is muggy, it is soupy, but it is a beautiful, clear night out there. Not a cloud in the sky, actually, right now. So after the show, if you have a chance, go out and check out the rare blue moon. I'll tell you more about it in the long range. It'll be around until tomorrow morning as well if you miss it tonight. When you wake up tomorrow morning, if you are checking out the rare blue moon, it will feel like 28 and it feels close to 40 by the time you hit into Monday afternoon, and that heat is really surging. We also have a slight storm risk, especially Niagara region and east end of the GTA. It's all remnants of tropical moisture from Tropical Depression Henri that's bringing a ton of rain and flooding stateside. Now, coming up, I'll tell you about the carbon copy days of heat and humidity that we will have in the short and in the long range. Maribel?
Okay, and a few more hacks. We'll take them if you got them, Sophia.
I'll bring some notes.
Awesome, thanks. Well, festival season is back for the first time since the pandemic, and that means the Taste of the Middle East returns for a fourth year.
We bring the community together. We give access to our youth and our Middle Eastern people to have access and to feel a sense of belonging and to celebrate their culture and celebrate the beauty of our Middle Eastern culture.
The weekend festival brought out visitors from the GTA and Southern Ontario. On top of the food, an Arabic saxophone player and stand-up comedian were among the many acts enjoyed today. And thanks to its partnership with Street Eats Market and Scarborough Town Centre, organizers held the event at the mall's parking lot this year. Canada is working to fly people out of Kabul. Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan described some of the challenges that effort is facing.
I wish it was easy as coming to a gate and to be able to put your hand up to go through. But the security situation, unfortunately, just does not allowing for that. But we have Canadian Armed Forces members at every gate. Sometimes the U.S. has made a decision just temporarily to having to close the gate for security reasons.
Sajjan was responding to stories of people being unable to find Canadian representatives at the Kabul airport. And throngs continue to crowd outside Afghanistan's capital at that airport, desperately hoping to flee Taliban rule. And in Washington, the criticism is growing over how the U.S. withdrawal was handled or mishandled. CBC's Lauren Pelly has that story.
Plane after plane, hour after hour. The U.S. evacuation mission is shuttling hundreds from Taliban-controlled Afghanistan to this American Air Force base in Germany.
It's enormous because it is such a huge humanitarian mission.
To ease overcrowding, U.S. officials have ordered commercial planes to ferry evacuees between bases.
Sit down.
But they won't be flying into Kabul, where security is becoming a bigger concern.
U.S. forces were shooting fires, Taliban, and also like Afghan forces too at the gate. So people were getting hurt left and right, and it was a really bad situation.
The new worry? The city's crowded airfield is a target for terrorist attacks. Recent footage shows aircraft shooting flares upon takeoff, meant to confuse heat-seeking missiles.
There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television. It's just a fact.
Today, President Joe Biden defended his decision to withdraw U.S. troops, but suggested the August 31st deadline could be extended.
At the end of the day, if we didn't leave Afghanistan now, when do we leave? Another 10 years? Another 5 years? Another year?
This is utter chaos. And he was saying, well, you know, there would have been chaos anyway. This is not what most experts say.
This Canadian political expert says there's blame to go around, but
the Biden administration owns this because the execution has been so bad. Mistakes have been piled upon miscues. And the intelligence reports that they had were either ill-informed or they were ignored.
U.S. officials say they're ramping up evacuations, and Americans remain the top priority. Biden will meet with his G7 counterparts on Tuesday. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Tropical storm Henri is drenching the northeast United States. It hit the coast of Rhode Island today with winds of over 110 kilometers an hour, and it's set to cross over from New England to Nova Scotia. CBC's Chris Reyes takes a look at the damage it's already caused.
Power outages, flash flooding, storm surges. That's what millions of people in the northeast region of the U.S. woke up to Sunday. Tropical storm Henri made landfall in Rhode Island this afternoon. Even as it was downgraded, damage from heavy rains and wild winds put everyone in the area on high alert. New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island are all under a state of emergency.
The affected area is very large, and the amount of rainfall is very large, and the potential for serious damage from flooding is very large.
Storm surge is the big worry. 11 million people are under flash flood warnings tonight, covering most of New York City, New Jersey, and southern New York.
This storm has the potential for widespread consequences across the region, with significant flooding and power outages that could affect hundreds of thousands of people.
I'm in New Jersey, that's Manhattan, across the Hudson River. It's been raining pretty steady here. Last night, Central Park set a record for the most amount of rain in 1 hour for that location, canceling the city's big concert.
Approaching severe weather.
People from New Jersey to Maine lost power overnight into Sunday, the outages affecting more than 135,000 homes.
I woke up, my power was off, I went to check on something, I started to walk, there was up ankle deep water. I looked outside, it was like a raging river on each side, and then they came and they took us out in the boats.
As the storm moves past, governors are urging their residents not to get complacent.
Yesterday we asked you to prepare for the storm. Today I'm asking you to stay home.
Henri is not done yet. The storm is expected to stall near the Connecticut-New York border, moving to southern Massachusetts on Monday and near Nova Scotia on Tuesday. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New Jersey.
Muslim Canadian youth found a way to give back to the healthcare community this weekend using sport and competition. Members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association gathered from different parts of the country for a national sports tournament. The four-day event began yesterday and is taking place in Vaughan. The group is committed to fundraising $2 million, with all proceeds going toward the healthcare initiatives of the Cordalucci Vaughan Hospital.
Our youth, they are taking great interest in reaching out to the neighbors, reaching out to the local businesses, and asking them to come forth and pledge in this.
And I think right now we're encouraging all Canadians to step up and help one another and be a shoulder to ease the burdens that we're all facing.
Public health restrictions are in place throughout the event. For anyone interested, the tournament is open to the public, with games running from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. A Toronto man is attempting to become the first person with a physical disability to cross international waters paddleboarding across Lake Ontario. His goal? To raise awareness and money to help youth with mental health issues. Mike Shorman is traveling between Rochester, New York and Toronto, covering about 140 kilometers. We spoke to him before he hit the water about his goal and his message.
People told me that, I would never paddleboard again. My name's Mike Shorman, and, I used to be a professional paddleboarder. Everything changed in 2018, and I got very sick very quickly. I went from being really athletic and fit to losing my sense of balance. I needed help walking, and I had to learn how to walk properly again. So the first time that I got back on the board, it was just actually by happen chance, and I lasted 3 minutes. It was very scary and really nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I felt like I was at home. On the other side of working through my mental health crisis I decided then, you know, I have to be the first at something. I have to, you know, do something that hasn't been done before. So I thought, okay, I'll become the first person with a disability to paddleboard from one country to another. I hope this shows people that, you know, don't listen to the naysayers, don't listen to the people that say that you can't do things, because, you know, when communities come together and support people who have disabilities, amazing things can happen, and they can go out and they can do really big things and accomplish big goals.
And you can follow Mike's journey on Twitter at Mike Shorman. We've got his latest update, which reads, a beautiful sunset to end day 1 of 3, almost. Now it's time for some night paddling before a restful night and early morning. Of course, Sophia, we wish Mike safe paddling, and he might get some relief being out on the lake from this heat.
Yeah, the nights are probably the best time to be out there. Of course, it's maybe not the safest unless he has his crews out there. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful nights out there right now, and some good stretches of dry weather for him at least. It will be muggy and hot and humid, carbon copy days we talked about earlier of heat and humidity, with the forecast temperature in the low 30s, and then the feels like in what feels like close to 40 for many of the next few days. Storm risk as well for Monday and Tuesday. Monday, especially Niagara region and east end of the GTA. It's that remnant moisture of tropical depression Henri. Mostly a dry forecast, though. In the coming days, you could see some embedded storms and some of the scattered showers that will come through potentially for some of you, but really hot and dry will be the name of the game. More of a storm chance into the afternoon on Wednesday. That's the really muggy day, and a bit of a break from all that humidity Friday before it cranks back up and surges into the weekend. And this is a busy week here at home as well. The Jays will be home for a run of home games starting Thursday, so you're going to want to make sure if you are heading out to layer on the sunscreen and have those hats on hand as well. This number is growing as well. 21 days and counting now above 30 degrees. That number sure to grow over the coming week. We normally only have about 15.8 days every year above 30. Many more chances at a run for that total over this coming week, but it's the feels like I really want you to know about and take heed of what feels close to 40 for many of these days in the upcoming week's forecast. If you are heading out, remember to check out that rare blue moon. It'll be around tomorrow morning as well. Nice cloudless sky. It won't be back until August of 2024, Maribel.
I'm going to do that as soon as we finish with the show. Thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome. It's gorgeous.
You should too. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime. Our website's cbcnews.ca. Have a great night, everyone.